All right, we're going to be working on some application problems involving multiplication and division with decimals. Okay, so let's get right to it. Suppose you're going to make bead necklaces to sell at a street fair. You've got twine on a string, and you've got 3 colors of beads to choose from. Green beads are 6 centimeters, right? And white beads are 5.5 centimeters in length. Oh, that's weird. We have 3 colors. I wonder what the other one is. Oh well, I guess it's not important. If you use only green beads, how many strings can you fit on or how many beads can you fit on a string that's 39 centimeters long? So what we've got here is this long string, and we're going to put little green beads on here, boop, 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 like this, and we're going to see how many of them fit. And so to me, that seems like a division problem, right? We're going to start with 39 centimeters, and we want to divide it by 0.6 or 0.6. The reason we're doing that is we only care about the green beads together. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. I can see that if I'm dividing by 0.6, I'm going to move this decimal over one place, and therefore I'll need to move the decimal that's not really written here, but it kind of is. I've got to move that over one place as well. So what I'm going to be doing is having 390, not 360. I'm going to have 390 divided by 6. So 6 goes into 39 6 times. So I can do nice whole numbers. I can do that pretty easily. That's much better than decimals. And then this goes into here 5 times. So this looks like it's going to be 65 green beads. Now, I didn't just put beads because there's also white beads. So it's probably important to be a little more clear about that. Because if you want to string together 72 white beads, will they fit? I don't know. There's a couple different ways to do this. One is to, let's take 72 white beads, and we're going to take that times the length of a white bead. White beads are 55 or 0.55 centimeters in length. So if I multiply these together, and I say if, but that's what I'm going to do. So that's that, and then 5 times 7 is 35, plus 1 makes 36. 5 times 2 is 10. Carry the 1. Imagine that. It's another 36. And then I get 0, 6, 9, 3. Now I have 2 decimals that I was multiplying, so I'm going to have 2 decimals in my answer. Now think about what this means. This means that if I want to string together 72 white beads, then it will take 39.6 centimeters in order to make that happen. Well, my twine is only 39 centimeters long, right? So will they fit? No, right? We need 39.6 centimeters of twine to fit 72 green beads. There. So that's one good way of doing it. Now, there's another way to do it here, and that is to say, why don't we take 39 centimeters and we'll divide it by 0.55? Because I know that a white bead is 0.55 centimeters in length. And so if it's 0.55 centimeters in length, then I'll just divide them, and we'll see if it fits. So I first got to move this over 2 places. I'm going to move the decimal here over 2 places, over to there. Now, if I divide these, and if I get 72 or more, then I would say, yeah, they fit. If I don't get 72, it doesn't fit. So let's start out. We'll put, I don't know, 5 doesn't go into 39. It does go into 390 5 times. All right, and then that's 385. Okay, that's 1, 5. Wait a minute here. Not 1, 5. Just 5. And then we'd say 55 goes into this 0 times. Look, so 70 and change. Okay, 70 and then just a little bit of change here. So will they fit? No. Still no. Only 70 beads fit. Only 70 white beads fit on here. All right, so either one of those would be fine. You could do it either way. You're still going to get the same answer. A sheet of plywood is 0.25 inches thick. Find the height of a stack of 150 sheets of plywood. Okay. Now, there's 150 sheets, and each one is 0.25 inches thick. So imagine like we're going to stack all these up, right? Just keep stacking them, 150 of them. How tall is that going to be? Well, all I got to do is to take 150 sheets times how tall each sheet is. Now, there's another nice way of doing this we'll talk about in a second, but let's go with this because I think this is the most intuitive. 5 times 5 is 25. Period 2. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 2 makes 7. Right? 0, 0, 3. 0, 5, 7, 3. And then that gets me, there's 2 decimals here, so I get to that. So the answer to this is actually 37.5 inches. So I told you there's another way to do this, and this is maybe just kind of like reasoning through and thinking about it a little bit. But I could do this also by dividing by 4. You might say, wait a minute, why in the world would you divide by 4? Well, that's because if each sheet is 0.25 inches thick, it's going to take 4 of them to be 1 inch. So if I take 150 sheets, and I know that if I like make groupings of 4, right, this is going to be 37.5 groups. That's how many groups of 4. Remember, each group of 4 sheets of plywood would be 1 inch. So it's just another way of doing this. That's all, right? And then also write down that same vein of thought, if you will. 150 times 0.25, that's 25 100ths, right? But look at this, 25 and 100, guess what reduces? 1, and there's that 4 that we were talking about just a minute ago, right? Okay, so there's like 3 different ways to do that one problem, and I'm sorry if you're like, just show me the one way, you're confusing me. I'm sorry. Just pick one that you like. Okay. Car is bought for $3,600 down and payments of $141 each month for 24 months. Find the total cost of the car. This is a 2-part problem. First thing we've got to do is figure out the total payments, right? For the payments, we have 24 payments, and each payment is $141.50. So once we do that, then we're going to have to add to that plus the down payment. So the down payment's money you give right up front, plus all of the payments that we're going to make. So we're going to take $141.50. You know what? I need a little more room here. So let's just come up over here. I'm going to take $141.50 times 24. Okay. 0, 0, 2, 6. Okay. And then I'll multiply the 2 times 0, get 0, 0, 3, 8, 2. 0, 0, 6, 9, 3, 3. Talking to myself a lot here, aren't I? Sorry. There we go. So again, you could do this by getting rid of all the decimals and then putting the decimals on in the end. I just like to do it this way, I guess. So I have 2 decimals that I was multiplying, so I made sure to put 2 decimals here. The total of all of the payments is going to be $3,396. $3,396. And then we also add on the down payment. That's the money we had to give right up front. So we're going to add on that $3,600, and you add those two together, that should get you $6,996. Okay, here we go. All right. You pay this much each year in life insurance, and you pay the premiums in 12 equal months. How much is your monthly payment? Well, if this is a whole year, we just want to split that up over 12 months. So and whenever we split, that's talking about division. So we're going to take this and we'll divide it by 12. 12 goes into 12 one time, of course. 12 doesn't go into 8, so I've got to put my placeholding 0 right here. Then we'll bring the next one down as well. 12 goes into 84 rather nicely, actually. Right? 12 goes into 84 7 times. So that's 84. We'll bring the next one down. Of course, 12 doesn't, oh, keep the decimal right there. 12 doesn't go into 7, but you bring that 2 down, and then we'll say 12 goes into that 6 times. So we end up getting $107.06 for that one. All right. All right. All right, let's move on to some multiplication and division with not integer, but positive and negative numbers. Now, the same rules apply as whenever we be multiplying integers, positives and negatives, right? So if the product of two numbers with the same sign is always positive, that means a negative times a negative is a positive, and a positive times a positive is a positive, right? And the product of two numbers with different signs is a negative. So negative times a positive and a positive times a negative will always result in negative numbers. The same is true when we're talking about dividing, because dividing is just multiplying by a reciprocal. Okay. All right, so here I'm multiplying two positive numbers. That means I'm going to end up with a positive number. Okay. So let's take a look. I've got, we're going to move the decimal one place here and one place here. In the end, we're going to end up having 2 decimals in our answer. Okay, and then this is one where we'll actually be able to chop one off. So we'll take this. If you don't want to multiply these decimals, you don't want to put them in here, you don't have to. You can just leave them off and then take care of them at the end. 5 times 4 is 20, right? 15 and 2 makes 17. And now this is where we said, okay, so we have 2 decimals, so we'll move it 1, 2 places, so 1.70. Now, we're just going to leave that as just 1.7, so positive 1.7, and we're good. Usually we don't write the positive. Okay. On this next one, I can see that we've got a negative times a positive. That means that my answer is going to result in a negative number. So, and I see that 1, 2 places here and 1, 2 places there. That means a total of 4 decimals was what we'll have. So it's going to be like something, point and then 1, 2, 3, 4 decimals here. Okay. All right, let's get to it. We've got 0.23 times 0.15. It's a 5. Carry the 1. 5 times 2 is 10 plus 1 makes 11. 1 times 3 is 3, and 1 times 2 is 2. Well, I like multiplying by ones. And then 5, 4, 3. Okay, so it's 5, 4, 3, but remember I gotta have 4 decimal places. So that means I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3. I need another one on here. Boom, just like that. And then because at the very beginning I put this negative here so I wouldn't forget it, now I know negative 0.0345, and we're done. All right, let's keep going on. We're going to multiply here. Whew, this is a lot of decimals. I'm going to have a lot of decimals in my answer here, right? 1.31 times 0.006. I'm going to end up having 5 decimals here. So let's get this multiplied. And I get 786. And then I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's my decimal. I notice I only have one of these numbers negative, so a positive times a negative is a negative, and it'll be 0.00786. Okay. Here I've got negative times a negative. That's going to result in a positive number. I've got 2 decimals here, so ultimately I will just have 2 decimals in my answer. Okay. We'll multiply these out. 4 and 6 make 24, plus 1 is 25. Okay, and just a little multiplication. I get 1512. Remember we said we'd have 2 decimals. That means the answer, the decimal must go there, and I get positive 15.12. Remember, we don't have to write the positive. Okay. I just put it there so we remember that it was. Next. Okay, so when I go to divide this, I've got to move, remember, it's the second number. We got to, however many places we move it, we've got to move it here too. So if I move this one place, then I've got to move this one just one place. And so what I have is 70.2 divided by 36. Now 36 only goes into this one time. I know because 36 times 2 is 72. That's too big. So this goes in one time. I'll keep that decimal right where it is. That leaves me with 34, and then I would bring the next one down. So let's see, this is a pretty big one. It's almost 360, that would be 10 times, so my guess is 9. 54. 9 and times 3 is 27, plus 5 makes 32. Okay. And then 16, 18 looks like. Now, here's a case where we're going to bring another one down. So I'll just put a 0 here. I just add a 0 on the end. And then 36 actually goes into this exactly 5 times. And that will be exact. So we get 1.95. Now I'm going to go back and double check the signs. I can see that positive divided by positive must still be a positive. Okay. The next one, I have a negative divided by a positive. That answer is going to be a negative. This is going to move over one place, and this will move over one place. Hey, no more decimals. This just says 225 divided by 15. 15 goes into 22 one time. And then 15 goes into 75 5 times. There's nothing left over. That's just negative 15. Now, you might have been able to spot that because you might have known that 15 squared is 225. That's a perfect square. Maybe, maybe not. The next one, I see I have a positive divided by a negative. That means my answer will be a negative. So I'm going to put that on right away. I can see that I've got to move this over one place, so I'll move this one over one place as well. That gets me 846.6. And I'm going to divide by not 1.7, but rather 17. Remember, we took the time to move this decimal over one place. We got to take this and move it over one place as well. We'll just put that right up in there. Now, 17 doesn't fit into 80, but 17 does fit into 84. Well, I know 5 would be 85. That's too big. So that will go there. 68. Okay, well that's 16, and then bring the next one down. 17 goes into this. It's got to be 9 times, because 10 would be 170. It's really close, right? 9 times 7 is 63. That's 9 and 6 make 15. Looking pretty good so far. We'll bring the next one down. 136. 8. If you didn't know that, you know, I'm just kind of guessing. I've been doing this a long time though, so I'm usually pretty good at guessing. I get them wrong every once in a while. There we go. Of course, sometimes I work these out ahead of time, and maybe I knew it was an 8 because I worked that one out already. Little pull back behind the curtains, which is good. It's good to know that I've actually work these out most of the time ahead of time so that I don't do too many things wrong. Of course, I do still make mistakes. Here, we've got a negative divided by a negative, so my answer will be a positive. Also, I'm going to move this over 2 places, so I'm going to move this one over 2 places. You should try to finish this one now. Like, this is a good one to pause on now that I kind of got it set up for you. All right, let's finish this. 8 goes into this 4 times. 8 goes into 11 one time. I'll bring the 2 down. And then 8 goes into the 2 4 times. Remember, this decimal is right here, so we just move it straight up. And so it's going to be positive 41.4. I'm going to get rid of this plus sign right here. Like I said before, when things are positive, we don't usually write a plus. We just kind of leave it. The last little thing we have here isn't really new. This is order of operations involving decimals. But I think everybody needs a lot of practice with the order of operations. Don't forget about GEMDAS. The G stands for grouping. Some of you may have learned PEMDAS, where the P stands for parentheses. It's just that, just because there's a parentheses in it doesn't mean that that's what you do. First, just a quick for instance, if I had, 4 to the 7th times, 3 times 18, don't think like, oh, we got to do this, and parentheses. This was a really bad example. I should have come up with a better one. Okay, so let me do a little better example. So maybe we had like 12 divided by 2 times 3. Like, don't think that just because there's parentheses here, oh, you do parentheses first. And that's one of the reasons why people have gone to this idea of GEMDAS instead of old school PEMDAS. Do your groupings properly. Don't think that just because there's a parentheses, you automatically have to do that first. This is a case where this parentheses right here really just means multiplication, in which case you would work division and multiplication, you work them from left to right. So you should very technically do 12 divided by 2. You would do this part first and get 6. Then you would take that times 3 and get 18. So I know it's a little bit of a tangent, but I wanted to explain real quick why some people talk about GEMDAS and some people stick with PEMDAS. Okay, to perform these operations in the right order. Well, we all know that in GEMDAS or PEMDAS, it says addition and subtraction, but remember that these two, multiplication and division and addition and subtraction, they're the same level of importance, and so you work them left to right. So we really need to do 3.6 minus 5.2 first, then we'll add 4.2 on. We don't do this plus 4.2 just because, oh, addition and then subtraction. No, we go left to right. So in order to do this, I see the bigger of these two numbers is the negative number. So I'm going to actually do 5.2 minus 3.6. Then I get 1.6. But here I have to acknowledge that the bigger one is negative, so my answer is negative. This will be negative 1.6 plus 4.2. And of course, most of the time people would rather write this like this, and they'd say 4.2 minus 1.6. And so that'll be 3 and 12, 2 and 6. And then I get 2.6. Notice that it is positive because it's negative 1.6 and a positive 4.2. So we get positive 2.6 because this one's much bigger. Okay, when I look here and I look closely, I see this little dot right here. Remember that dot means to multiply. So we have to multiply before we do this addition. We don't do 4.3 plus 10. No, we take 10 times 0.21. Of course, 10 times 0.21, multiplying by powers of 10, that's going to just make that into 2.1. Because whenever you multiply by 10, it's just moving a decimal over one place. Now we add these together. That will get us 6.4 for our final answer on that. Okay, these next ones have a little bit more going on to them, so we really got to pay attention to our order of operations. In our GEMDAS or PEMDAS, I'm going to look through these. I see a division, addition, division, division. So we definitely have to do some of the divisions first, and we're going to work on them from left to right. So we start out by doing this one. That's the first one we're going to do. And in order to do that, it's actually going to be 9 divided by 2, because I'm going to have to move this over one place, so I move this over one place. That's how I got those. 2 goes into 9 4 times. Now we don't use remainders. Remember, we're just going to put some decimals on here. So I put a 0 on the end, and I bring it down, and now 2 goes into 10 5 times. So this part right here becomes 4.5. Next, it says plus 1.4 divided by 0.07 divided by... Oh, I got to do the division before I do addition. So the next thing that I'll do is this part right here. I've got to do that and say, you know, well, this is going to move over 2 places. So I move this over 2 places. This is actually 140 divided by 7. 7 goes into 140 20 times, so this is now 20. And if I put these signs back on here, here's what it's going to look like now. I've got 4.5 plus 20 divided by -8. The next thing that I'll do then is this part right here, the part that says 20 divided by -8. Okay, so we'll come down a little bit. 20 divided by 8. 8 goes into 20 2 times. And then I'll just, oh, I had a remainder, so I had to start putting some decimals on. And then 8 goes into 40 5 times. Okay, once you put the decimal, it just stays right there. Now here's the other thing is I noticed this was a positive divided by a negative, so my answer will be a negative. So this whole thing right here becomes negative 2.5. Now I'm finally there. 4.5 plus negative 2.5. That's the same as 4.5 minus 2.5. That just gets us 2. Done. All right. Lastly, I'm going to look at the grouping or look inside your parentheses. I see I have some work to do inside here. Do I do the subtraction or the multiplication? Well, of course I do the multiplication. I've got to do 2.1 times 0.3. I see that there's 2 decimals here, so I need 2 decimals in my answer. That becomes this. So the first thing was for me to do that, and it came out to be 0.63. So if I rewrite what I have, just so that we're keeping track of everything, kind of looks like that. My next step then will be to continue working inside the parentheses, to continue looking at this part right here. 0.23 minus 0.63. Well, I'm going to do that by doing 0.63 minus 0.23. I'll just switch it around. That just gets me 0.4. 0.40 if you want to think about it that way, but I'm just going to leave it as 0.4. Now, because the bigger one is negative, I'm actually going to make this a negative 0.4 inside here. Next, I have nothing else to do inside the parentheses or inside my, I don't have anything else to group. So now I actually have to square it. Think about what it means to square this. So even though we haven't really done this, negative 0.4 squared does mean to multiply it by itself. So that just means negative 0.4 times negative 0.4. And of course, we know that a negative times a negative results in a positive. So if I'm only looking at just this part right in here, well, I'm sorry, this whole thing here. Okay, if I'm looking at all this, then what I would say is that whole thing there is going to become positive 0.16. 4 times 4 is 16. There's 2 decimals there. Now, this negative is still out here. Notice I didn't touch that. So what I've got is 2 minus 0.16. 2 minus 0.16. So, you know, if you think about this like $2, we oftentimes will write that as 2.00. And then we can come over here and borrow from it. You know, I might count up and change. I'm going to say that it's going to be 84 cents plus another dollar. It's $1.84. But, you know, we'll go ahead and do this borrowing because I know a lot of people are more comfortable with that. There. All right, 2 minus 0.16 ends up with 1.84. That is our final answer to this problem. There's a lot there. Okay, 1.84. Ooh, that's a lot with decimals. So we'll keep working through them in other lessons, but this was your multiplication and division. We did a lot of word problems. We did applications, positives and negatives, all kinds of stuff. Wow, good luck with all these decimals. And don't forget, you can check your answers on calculators. Make sure you're doing these right. I'd much rather you check it on a calculator once you're finished just to make sure you did it right. All right, good luck.